You ready for the Five Nights at Freddys movie, but minus the license? So like the great value Five Nights at Freddys? Equate? Sam's choice. I'm sure my non-US viewers are gonna understand all those references. Willy's Wonderland is brought to us by director Kevin Lewis and stars Nicolas Cage, Emily Tosta, and Beth Grant. But let's be real, we're all just here for Nick Crazy Cage. When a mysterious drifter, played by Nick Cage, suddenly has car problems while passing through the sleepy little town of Hayesville, he's told by a local mechanic that, "I'll fix your car for free, buddy, but you gotta go work it off as a janitor for the night at this place that my buddy owns." So, being strapped for cash, our mysterious drifter, known as the janitor, yep, that's what he's listed as in the credits, takes this friendly country gentleman with absolutely no ulterior motive up on his friendly offer, and he enters into the closed-down Chuck E. Cheese-esque Willy's Wonderland to clean for the evening. However, shortly after getting locked up in that bitch, he discovers that not everything is on the up and up at Willy's Wonderland. Much like another pizzeria-type joint in popular culture, the animatronics at Willy's Wonderland don't always stay in place, and our mysterious silent janitor finds himself in a battle for his very life. Willy's Wonderland is abso-fucking-lutely inspired by Five Nights at Freddy. And when I say inspired, I mean this is Five Nights at Freddy's with a fresh coat of paint, but they didn't put enough coats on it because you can see the original paint job through this coat. And even though that fresh coat of paint is there, you absolutely see the original color bleeding through all throughout this film. I took that analogy a bit far. Now, I've always kind of liked the idea of Five Nights at Freddy's because those animatronics are pretty fucking terrifying when all the lights are off. I know this because I've seen them with my own two eyes, because back in another life, when I was a teenager, I used to work at Chuck E. Cheese for some time. Yeah, go ahead, laugh it up. And while working there, when I would see these things after hours, they always kind of terrified me and gave me this really weird vibe. So I can totally see how something like Five Nights at Freddy's could be absolutely fucking terrifying. If you've seen the trailer to this movie, you know what to expect. The trailer sells exactly what this is. You got some people locked up in a Chuck E. Cheese-esque pizzeria, and the animatronics come to life, and they have to fight for their lives throughout the night. It's over the top, at times a bit ridiculous, and really fucking gory. And the trailer for this thing looked fucking amazing. I was really hyped for Willy's Wonderland. However, while Willy's Wonderland did hit some of the right beats, it also tripped up a bit here and there. First of all, let's talk about Nick Cage because he is definitely one of the best parts of this movie. His silent protagonist is just the badass that we all wish we were. And when I say silent, I mean fucking silent. He does not say one single word in this movie. He makes like a few grunts and he may yell once or twice, but not once does he utter a goddamn word. And really, that kind of worked here. I didn't know if it would, but I was cool with it because the whole time I was like just waiting for him to say that one thing. I was waiting for that crazy Nick Cage to just like burst out vocally at any point in time. And while I thought that part was kind of funny, especially the way they play with how he communicates with people here or there, that was one of the things that pulled it down just a bit. We get Crazy Cage here, but we don't get insane, out of his mind, Mandy Crazy Nick Cage. Because the guy never gets to say anything, and that's part of his charm. That's part of the insane nuttiness that Nick Cage is. He says these outlandish fucking crazy ass things in these nutty movies he's in. But here, this is just a purely physical performance. And yes, he makes it work, and I did like it. Like I said, he is one of the best parts of this movie. But the entire time, I felt like there was just a little bit more that we could have gotten from him if he had just been able to vocalize just a bit. Now, something tells me this is kind of hearkening back to the inspiration of Five Nights at Freddy's, because the protagonist in those games, from what I remember, is silent the entire time. So maybe that's what they were going for. Did it work here? Yeah, I guess, but I do wish he had said a bit more. It could have worked even better had he just spout out a couple of nutty buddy things here or there. As I said a moment ago, the story here is pretty much what you expect from the trailer. There's not really any surprises, and there's not much left to the imagination either. The movie actually does explain why this is all going on. And I was kind of divided on this aspect of the movie. Part of me liked it, and part of me thought it was a bit much. You see, we learn why Willy's Wonderland is the way that it is through two parts of the film. Now, the first part is where we get most of the information. That part I was cool with. It made sense why they were saying it at the time that they were saying it. It gave us what we wanted. It didn't give us too much, but it gave us enough enough to understand why this was going on. And they could have left it there, but no, later on they have to give you even more exposition as to what's going on. But that part of the exposition, that background that they give us there, was too much. I already pretty much knew what was going on there. The movie had communicated everything they had to say there to us already through other means. So at that point, I felt like the filmmakers thought we were just fucking stupid and we needed to have it explained to us, that we couldn't pick up on that from what they had already shown us. I don't appreciate being reminded that I'm stupid, you motherfucking movie. So that part kind of soured the whole backstory part of the movie for me. If they had to do it, I think they should have shaved some of that off and just lumped it in with the first exposition part. Because the second one just really broke up the flow of the movie and it was just unnecessary. I was learning things that I already fucking knew. However, like I said, the movie had already communicated this shit to us, so they didn't really even need to put it in that first part. They just needed to not have it in the movie. It was unneeded, totally unnecessary. Now the rest of the movie is fun, and there's some really fun, entertaining parts to this movie, but there's also some parts that kinda drag. It's never like outright boring, and the tone is fairly consistent, I guess, but it's like the energy of the film is a bit inconsistent. Really, anytime Nicolas Cage leaves the screen, whenever he's not featured, the energy of the movie bottoms out. Thankfully though, he is there quite a bit, so whenever those bottoming out parts happen, he shows up soon and brings things back up. Now this is not a horror movie, regardless of what anybody tells you. This movie's not scary in the slightest. It is framed that way a bit, and it does have some horror aspects to it, and it's gory as fuck. But this is much more an over-the-top horror comedy. And I only say horror comedy because there is a bunch of like blood, guts, and nightmarish things in it. All of it's so over-the-top and quirky at times that I found myself having a hard time taking it seriously, but I don't think it was meant to take seriously either. Ultimately, I did enjoy what was happening in this movie. It was a good time for the most part. It did have its dips, but its highs were pretty high. However, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that it didn't quite live up to what I was wanting it to be. Now, it is better than the last horror-themed animatronic movie we got, The Banana Splits, about 2 years ago. It's a whole lot better than that one, that's for sure. But it did seem like in parts, it was just missing that little something here or there to really put it over the top. Now, the performances we get here are pretty much what we expect from this kind of movie. Nothing groundbreaking, but nothing terrible either. Everybody does a pretty admirable job here. Most of the characters are fairly stereotypical, but that does kind of go along with the movie. They fit in this movie. As mentioned previously, Nicolas Cage is the best part of the film. If you had put anybody else in this role, I think it would have greatly affected the film negatively. Something about his super swagger cool attitude throughout this film just made it that much more watchable. And come on, let's be real, nobody does over-the-top nutty buddy crazy like Nicolas Cage. But beyond him, there's not really any other standouts here, good or bad. Overall, everybody else is just pretty solid. Now, the technical side of this movie is pretty good, however, there are some creative decisions they made that I think will be an acquired taste for some. Effects-wise, everything looks really good here, especially considering the small budget that they were working with. The animatronics and the gore, for the most part, are all practical. There are a couple of CGI shots here or there, but they are fairly limited, and what we do get is okay. Now, there are a couple of shots that are a bit suspect in the CGI department, but they're not much. There's not a whole lot of that here. Most of it all looks real good, especially since a lot of it was practical, and the gore is just all over the place. There's blood and parts and all that. It's great. If you are a gore hound, you're gonna find a lot to like here. Now, that acquired taste part I was talking about a minute ago, that really has more to do with the way that this movie was shot. It does get a bit jumpy here or there, and they did use some interesting lenses on the camera to mask some things. And I get they did that probably because of the limited budget they were working with, so they had to kind of cover some of that up with the camera work. And really, I was okay with that. It was fine. For the most part, you can see very clearly everything that's going on here. However, there's these weird lenses they put on the camera that you typically don't put on a camera in these types of scenes. From what I could tell, it was like these ultra wide lenses that kind of bend some of the things in the frame, and it just looks really weird. Some of it I could see because it was in these scenes that were a bit heightened and over the top and almost dreamlike, but then some of it's just regular old scenes of people talking, and it just looks really weird where everything on the edges is kind of rounded off because they've got this ultra wide lens on it. It's kind of like a fishbowl effect or a fisheye lens or something. Now, it doesn't like ruin the movie or anything, but it's definitely noticeable, and it did kind of take me out here or there and make me say, why'd they do that? Why in that shot? I mean, some of these action shots, I get it. It kind of just adds to the heightened sensibilities of everything that's going on just then. But when you got these two people just like standing in front of a building outside talking and you've got this crazy lens going on, why? I don't get. Did somebody forget it was on there? And then after they'd shot it, they just said, oh, well, fuck it. We'll fix it in post. And they forgot to do that? I don't know. I mean, I guess it was a creative thing, but I don't really understand the creative process behind those shots. As I said, doesn't ruin it, but that's the thought process. It did take me out of what was going on in the movie at that moment, and I was wondering, why does the screen look like this? That aside, though, from a technical standpoint, for the vast majority of the time, this movie is fairly solid. I had a pretty good time with Willy's Wonderland, though admittedly, it wasn't as good a time as I was hoping to have had. There are some things in it that I really liked, pretty much anything that involved Nicolas Cage in the movie. However, on the flip side of that, there were multiple times during the movie that the flow and pace got broken up by some of the down points in the film. And I felt like they went a bit far with reiterating some of the backstory of what's going on. That being said though, there are some really solid performances here. The movie looks really nice. And overall, I did have a pretty good time with Willy's Wonderland. And while it wasn't quite as amazing as I was hoping it would be, it is absolutely worth checking out on streaming.
Across the street.
If you're a Five Nights at Freddys fan or just an over-the-top kind of goofy horror fan, I think you'll find some things in Willy's Wonderland to like. And while I don't think it's for everybody, the people that it is made for, I think will really enjoy it. And if these things sound like a good time to you, then check out Willy's Wonderland one night, and I think you'll have a pretty good time with it. So there it is, guys, my review of Willy's Wonderland. If you enjoyed and want more content like this, hit that subscribe button and help my little channel grow. If you liked what I had to say, give me a like. If not, let me know in the comments below why. And as always, stay sexy, Hayesville. Now, as I mentioned earlier, as a teenager, I worked at Chuck E. Cheese for quite a few years. And quite honestly, I saw one of the most terrifying things of my life within those walls. If you think those animatronics look creepy in the dark, let me tell you something that is leagues beyond that. We had a guy who would come in and periodically do maintenance on the animatronics after hours. And to do this, he would peel the skin back from their heads and like their arms and stuff like that. And they pretty much looked like the fucking Terminator under there, but kind of like nightmarish. Now, there was like a door to the back of the kitchen that went straight out to where these animatronic monstrosities were. And one night, the first night that I ever witnessed them do this, I walk through the kitchen and go back there, and the first thing I'm fucking greeted with is this fucking nightmare-fueled Terminator, evil, demonic-looking monstrosities up on a stage. Look that shit up. I'm sure there's pictures of these fuckers without their skin on the internet. They are fucking terrifying. Now, I've seen a lot of fucked up shit in my life, but that image right there has stuck with me throughout the fucking years. That was one of the most terrifying things I have seen with my own eyes in real life. Shit haunts me to this fucking day, man. My poor kids can't even go to fucking Chuck E. Cheese because I'm too goddamn scared. Yeah, that's right, kids. When it comes to Chuck E. Cheese, your dad's a little bitch.